adaptability, transforming. Whew, that's down to a car seat. That's down to dinner at places you don't want to go. That's down to changing churches, and that's down to,
All of that, all the above.
If you are too rigid, if you're too rigid and you are
Go
unwilling
home.
to change, you're going to have some problems.
Yes.
If you are unwilling to change and you are too rigid, you are going to have some problems. Adaptability comes with love and mercy have I drawn thee. You have to be able to adapt on a fly sometimes. And
Rituals,
and different types of
traditions.
rituals, traditions may change. You may have to adopt something that fits for the one, and again, it's a crock pot, and let all the flavors marinate.
Right.
And so I think that adaptability piece is crucial because now granted, of course, there are some things that you just don't budge on. I want to make
Right.
sure that that's very clear, that there's some things we're not, in order for the family dynamics, I'm not doing this, right? At the same time, if it doesn't destroy the dynamics and you have to bend with the wind or as the reed bends in order for the homeostasis or for the balance of the house, sometimes if it's for the good of all, those are some things that we have to reassess and not be so staunch to where I'm this way and I've been this way and I'm not going to change.
Well, I have a scenario. What if somebody's allergic to pets and you've always had a pet?
Right.
What you gonna do now? Right?
So we
How do
have,
you honor everybody, everyone?
Right. We tried it. Because I want to say you, I guess, are a pet person. But I had a little dog, and he's with my dad now. But we tried him with us, and it just didn't work. We now have another dog who we're getting acclimated to. But with our little dog, it was actually Czar's, like her,
Like a comfort.
a comfort pet. That's what Mickey was for her. And he just did not he didn't like James. Like, he would bark. Like, if you would walk past Czar's room, he's growling at. He wouldn't let us go in there to wake her up for school in the morning.
Nobody.
Like, and he's a little Yorkie, to know that it's a Yorkie. He's a tiny little dog. But we had to let Dad take him because it was messing up the dynamics. Like, we just
The whole dynamic.
It wasn't working.
Right. And what about disciplining style? Because sometimes you have in your mindset that this is how it goes down. Don't you talk to me like that. You know, my weapon of choice is the belt or whatever.
Right.
And I don't talk to kids. I don't do that. I don't play with kids. So, and then you challenge each other. This is still blending because it worked for Big Mama, it worked for Aunt Sally, it worked for the church mothers, it worked for, so how do you adapt?
You have to try because it's tough. And I know for us a lot of the time, I was like, let me be the bad parent, as good cop, bad cop. Let me be that because I can't see you disciplining her. But I had to know that wasn't right. Like, if she needs to be disciplined, then we have to discuss how we're going to do it and allow. I feel like for a long time in our marriage, I didn't allow him to. And I think it kind of messed up stuff for a while, especially because it was just like taking that away. It kind of gave her an up, like, well, I could do what I want and you can't do nothing about it. And we had to kind of fix that.
Right. So you said the key thing. You said you had to come together and agree.
Yes.
Because sometimes it could be that it's too much. It's not that you have and that's just like with a traditional family where both parents are, biological children. But it's the adaptability that you're coming into a situation with different experiences and you're deciding together. Together, not based on, you feel like you're being torn or you feel like a traitor because now you're doing it together, but you're coming together and deciding what are the rules going to be and disciplining.
That can also go for gender, how you
saw that.
raised for different gender. I'm a very pro-male. Once the boy gets up to a certain age, knock it off. You are not going to be holding on to your mother's apron. It's over. But you can't just come out like a gangbuster and start when all it's been is mom. There has to be a level of trust in order to be, because you're trying to develop that young male. And you can't do it, because what will happen is you'll end up breaking the person instead of transforming the person. And so that even comes with having some adaptability and being mindful of your approach on how you did it. If your father did it that way, well, that may not work in this house. It may not work here. I can't do it. I can't do their approach here. I can still get my point across in the aspect of discipline and correction and course correction, but I may have to change my approach and how it's being done. And so those are some of the things that, because you may deal with a child that all you need. I had one of my children stern talking, and they just get to weeping.
Yeah.
Just a stern talk, and so
Then there are others.
then there are others.
Right.
And right, and so you have to be aware of those issues.
I was gonna say too, the times that she did, we were in that time period in our relationship where it was just like, all right, Jamel's doing that. It brought so much attention to this is just her kid, right? And she didn't mean to do that, but it was like, all right, well, this is my kid. This is how we rolling with this because she's mine. Versus like, this is how we're addressing it, because we're together and we're a family, So I would say, just as a caution, like, and just moving forward, it's better to communicate, even though it's a tough conversation. It's still important to, stay in that communication, because it's better for everybody in the family.
Right. And so you touched on it. The M was for mindfulness, and that's being in the present, being aware of who you're talking to, what you're talking about, and not living in the past or being on automatic pilot. Because when people are hurting, they need you to be like cognizant. Who wants a doctor who is on autopilot or distracted or not in the present? You want your doctor to be where he's at. You want your doctor to have 10 toes down, correct?
Yes.
And when you're we should do this anyways, but more specifically when you're dealing with a hot topic and blending, you're a surgeon. You're putting all these pieces together that are broken, and you can get cut, hurt people, and broken people, cut people. So you're coming in and you're being very careful, and you have to be mindful. Mindful of what you say. Mindful of traditions, mindful of adaptability, mindful of everything just getting to know that child and getting to know one another as mates. Being mindful, being aware of what the needs are. And the W.
Willingness.
A willingness. You're going to have a willingness mindset to work through the pain, the grief, and for the purpose of blending.
I think part of the challenge is that you will not succeed if you're not willing to try to succeed. I think willingness is a big issue. What that deals with is that's on purpose. That you are purposely saying, we're going to work on this. It's intentional. So willingness is intentional. I have chosen to do what's best, for the totality of the whole, so we can make this thing work. And so willingness really means I think it's a test of your grit. Right. It's really a test of your grit, because in the scripture, my mind slips me. It's willing, but the flesh is weak. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And sometimes you got to tell yourself, we're going to do this. we're going to do this.
Especially when you're tired.
Say it again.
I said, especially when you're tired. Like, as a parent, all the parents raise your hand. If you've ever been tired, right? And it takes. It feels like this is way too close. Sorry. Sometimes it takes like that extra effort to be willing to say, like, hey, I'm taking you to the park. Like, we doing something. Like, we celebrate. Just being honest, we celebrated our anniversary, and we were both sitting there like the way that we chose to celebrate it. And we're sitting there looking at each other like, man, this has been a while. Like, and just thinking about like the being intentional, you know, it goes a long way when you, the Bible says that perfect love casts out all fear, right? And learning how to love people perfectly, right? And learning what it takes to love somebody, and the way that they receive information and all of that too.
Can I add to that? Because perfect, we think perfect in the sense of a perfect picture, but that word perfect is mature.
Yeah.
Mature love casteth out all fear.
Yeah.
So when you are mature, in despite of what the children say, you're mature enough to see past that. You're mature enough to say, hey, we got to work, we could work this thing out. So mature love, and I think that we kind of miss that gets lost in translation because we tend to think it's emotional when really it's maturity.
Right. And I think the willingness is can be difficult because if you've had one divorce or breakup, there's something that pops up and you kind of feel like, well, I don't have to take this. And so subsequently you end up getting a divorce, or you have your foot on the the one foot out the door with that mentality. And the willingness is the willingness to do the hard work. And everyone's hurting. Everyone is the patient. Like, can we just agree? I know that the people that are getting married are probably in a celebratory mood, but deep down, everyone is the patient. And you have to be willing to know that and willing to serve each other. I was talking to my daughter and I was reminded of when my husband came back from Iraq, and we had a hard time really supporting each other because I felt like I was here pregnant and worried and all by myself. And he felt like, let me tell you, I was in them Iraqi streets and dodging bombs, and I was by myself in a sense. So just being empathetic to, what we're all going through. You went through a bad relationship. I went through a bad relationship. Or, I had a child by someone that didn't work. Like, we're all fragile. Mm-hmm. And the willingness is to allow everyone to be the patient. Yes. And not just the kids. Right. Allow everyone, like empathy for all. Everyone gets served. And then organized. O is for organization. You have to have order. Because where there's chaos, there's every evil.
Definitely have to have order. With literally everything, with even the simplest of things, I had to realize, and it puts mindfulness, willingness, and organization like all in one, that I was with someone that didn't have children. He literally was a bachelor. So even having to move in together and know, like, okay, you can't just the first time asking him to go to the grocery store. My dear husband came home with Doritos and fruit punch, Hawaiian punch. Me being petty Jamel, I put those Doritos in the skillet, warmed them up, and served it to him. I said, this is what you went to the store and bought for dinner. And from then on, he was like, oh, I need to get some bread, some kind of meat, something. Yes, but I had to realize he had never done it before. So it's just like, okay, so I would write lists. I would show pictures of the brands that I like, because that's a whole thing too. Man. So we had to be very intentional with even the things that I would think were kind of common sense. It's not though for us. Like, and we have to be patient with each other in doing that.
Well said, because I got in trouble one time. When we were dating, and she told me to go to the store to get some chicken, and I bought chicken for $12, and she said, take the chicken back.
That's a lot now even, huh? Like for a whole
And
chicken.
I was like, what do you mean take the chicken back? Go back and get my money back. Needless to say, I went and I had to take the chicken back because I did not know how to shop. Now, when we first got together, she had kids and she was a little bit more,
Savvy.
very savvy. I'm a guy, I didn't know anything. It's a whole different world, brother. And so not knowing anything, there was a quick learning curve that I had to get up to speed. I thought, hey, if I just brought home milk, I'm good. Right. It's more than just bringing home milk. There's some other things that come with it. And so when you're organized, really creating order, if everyone understands order defends against chaos. Order defends against chaos, because without order, you have chaos. And with chaos, you have disharmony. And so order, all it does is allow the family, even the family dynamics, to have boundaries that are set that we are going to work in, that these are the areas that we're going to work in. If we can't work in these areas, we're going to have some problems.
Right.
It's like coloring. My wife tells me, I'm a boundary crosser. We have this thing now. We're trying to, every time we.
You don't got to tell everything.
No, okay, I'm not.
Didn't I give the disclaimer that he will tell it all? Turn that corner.
I'm done. Order.
Order. Yes. We have to be organized, and you have to have that conversation and decide. Not one person is responsible, because if you're the only person setting the order, then you're in a relationship with yourself.
Right.
When you're setting order, it's respectful to remember everyone, because that is acknowledging that everyone is a part of the relationship. That's the respect. Okay, so respect. That's to be given. Respect that there's a time period. Respect that everyone has their own feelings. Respect that this is a new and difficult situation. Just respect that that you're learning each other. Everyone is learning everyone. This is a hard task.
Even children. I know that we don't want to go that route, but even children, they should have a level of respect.
Respect the grieving process. And, even if they need to cry, not personalize that, because crying is helpful. It releases a stress hormone. Some of us just need to go have a good cry. That relationship, or those feelings of rejection, the feeling of abandonment, that might do wonders for our relationship. Just let it out and give each other permission to. Lastly, keep leading and demonstrating unconditional love. This is one of the most important tools, because you're not always going to feel like it. And you can't say, I'm going to love this child, or I'm going to love my mate when they treat my child better, or I'm going to love that child when that child listens. There has to be unconditional love. And a lot of this sounds like, we're getting ready to open up for questions, but really quickly, because we're almost out of time. But it sounds like a lot of this is geared towards parents, because in a natural family, it's geared toward parents. We're the responsible ones. We have to model appropriate behavior. And that's why it is incumbent upon us to take care of our mental health, because we're modeling how to deal with grief and change, complex issues, having two emotions at the same time. It's like having funeral music and celebratory music going on in your head at all times. That's confusing, right? So we have to model it. So we have to keep demonstrating unconditional love, because you're being tested. The kids in one another, we're being tested as adults in the relationship. Do you really love me? Are you going to stay? Because we all need security and we need belonging. That's part of securing our mental health so that we can deal with those traumatic events. We're all asking two questions. Am I secure? Do I belong? Do you love me? Am I accepted? Am I okay? So we're going to answer a few questions and we're going to close out with our words. Are there any questions in the audience? We have time for like 2 questions. 2 or 3? Okay. 2 or 3? Okay. Well, if anyone has questions, let's see.
Okay, so my question is probably more so directed towards them because they're kind of the new, age. But how was it with your dating stage, knowing that, was it hard for your family for you to date someone with a kid? And, how did that, because I know a lot of people have a lot to say about that. Like, people no, she has a kid, you're young, you can get somebody who, so how was that, for you?
I'll be totally honest with you. It was, there were talks like, hey, brother, you sure about this? Like, you got options, right? Like, there's other, so, but the truth of the matter is, what I had to constantly remind myself is, one, this is not a shameful move, right? And a shameful thing. To be honest, the foundation of the Christian church is on this, right? Like we're Christians because God allowed for it, and allow for this process. So during the dating phase, there was times where I had to make up in my mind, hey, I'm choosing her and I'm choosing us. So it's difficult. It's difficult, but it's intentional, and you let that intention continue to be your story instead of other people's perspective and everything.
Can I say something? It wasn't difficult for me because I wanted her. And if I wanted her, I wanted them. And when you have a person that understands, and the Bible talks about count the cost, I loved her, and I knew what came with her. And because I knew what came with her, I was okay with it. And I think that, especially with men, when you know what you want, you don't have to be convinced. It doesn't take a man 2, 5, 6, 10 years to tell him, so he's dating you that long because he's trying to convince himself. And he's trying to get over his own anxieties. It didn't take me long to know this is what I want. And I knew I knew what it was going to take. We had a child before out of wedlock, my son. I knew I was going to be his father, and I just wanted to be. I wanted to be with his mother, and because I love his mother, I love her children. And it didn't take me long. It didn't take long to figure that out. And I think that becomes the challenge, because when you're in the courting phase, my thought was, hey, let's all go out. Right. It wasn't just me and her, because I wanted those children to get used to my face, because they're going to be seeing me every day anyway. Right. And so that is the idea, that when you have that in your mind, this is I'm preparing a table. I'm preparing this process. And when you understand that, it's not difficult to make that decision.
I would diddle that. I always say that the more you love the person, then just like how I'll say that from a biblical perspective, God wants us to show that we love him by the way we love one another. So if you want to see someone's love for you in this arena, this blended family, then you get to see how they love your children. And I know that's hard because we haven't been taught, because sometimes there's fences around children and saying you can't love this person, and we put parameters if they have an active parent involved, but it does boil down to that. Right. I'm going to love you and treat you well because I love the person.
And then for us also, us being the first one, we were kind of like the trailblazers of it with our families. And you asking the question about families understanding, it was difficult for us because it was the first time, it was the first ones doing it. But literally, all of his siblings and all of my siblings, we're now blended families. Like all of us we've all married someone and are a blended family. So it was definitely difficult for us, but we see the fruits of it with our siblings being accepted or accepting someone. And we're all working together creating it now.
So what if like the father figure is like not respecting you, but you're respecting them?
Say again?
Like if the father figure is like respecting you, but they're like you're respecting them, but they're not respecting you.
That the man doesn't respect the child. I think that's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a big problem. Now, there's two variations to this. Is the child being acting out as a child, and 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 it's perceived as disrespect, or is the child just not being respectful? Now, the mother or the spouse is going to have to determine that. At the same time, the person that's coming into the relationship has to go in knowing that that's going to take place. They can't go in. I think the challenge is sometimes people go into relationships and they think that, oh no, it's just going to be just this great bliss, especially when you have a child that can talk
Right.
and can talk back and have their own thoughts, and don't let them be a teenager
Yeah.
that or even an adult. And so going into it, I think that you go into it with touch and go, with adaptability. We talked about adaptability and being able to adapt, because at the same time, when you get into a relationship of this nature, what is your expectation going into it? I think that that's the key thing. What is your expectation going into it? Do you expect that you're going into it and they're just gonna bow down and kiss the ring? Because I wasn't kissing the ring, you know. And I think that that's the challenge, because children have their own thought processes, opposite of their parents sometimes, and this is very much a reality.
Right, and there's still a way to have respect for everyone.
And garnering respect, I think that's the biggest piece, that we garner respect. I'm going into it respecting the child. I'm going into it respecting the parents and teaching respect. And even the correction may come from that parent. Hey, you're not going to be disrespectful. And I think that's a piece that plays a big part of it.
I would say too that like that biological parent is a part of that teamwork piece that we were talking about as well. We talked about the parents and we talked about the children, but that bio parent coming in to what's being like built, right? They're a part of, hey, I need to respect that there's time that needs to be given, and all of the empathy, all of those different areas, and respect being that piece. Like I gotta respect what they're building. And if I want to be a part of what they're doing. So, having those talks and everything, definitely, if it's going towards the child, that disrespect is going towards the child, then yeah, that's something that, that parent would have to advocate for that child. But.
Right, that's good.
My question is more along the line for the women. How was the process for you of adjusting and allowing the man to step into more of the authoritative role in the relationship, being that both of you came into the relationship of taking care of a whole human being on your own, and then the male figure came into the picture? How was that adjustment for you, having a partner come into the picture and then basically putting yourself in alignment with that partner while having a child? How was that process for you?
Was that for women or men? Oh,
It's an open-ended question.
So I had a friend tell me that my picker was broken. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was telling me that just relationships and people that I was deciding to be with was a problem. And I had to face that and know